So thinking is good, but it's very difficult to actually do properly. Okay, so what are you doing right now? Are you sitting down, kneeling, standing, walking, lying down? And what's going through your mind at the moment? What thoughts are you having? And how are you feeling? What's your emotional state right now? So these are some of the things that we consider when we talk about perfect awareness or right mindfulness, which is what the topic we're on at the moment. And this is the seventh stage of the Noble Eightfold Path. So just remember, for the context, the Noble Eightfold Path is part of the first teaching the Buddha gave after his enlightenment, and he gave it to the 5 ascetics he used to practice with. And this path led them from, or leads us from, a sort of state of suffering to one of liberation and enlightenment. And we've talked about a number of stages before. Last week, Maitreya talked about perfect effort, which got us into the realms of meditation. And this week we're going to sort of carry on with that. It's called, in Sanskrit, it's called Samyak Smriti. And that translates, normal translation of that is right mindfulness, or perfect mindfulness, or perfect awareness. So I'll use perfect awareness for this evening. And that's the translation that Bhante Sangharakshita uses, the founder of Triratna. He uses that translation in his book, The Buddha's Noble Eightfold Path, which I'm going to be sort of leaning on quite heavily in this brief little talk. I'll use the same structure that he uses in that book. So awareness is a very important, or mindfulness is a very important thing to Buddhism. It's basically our capacity to be aware of our experience of the world, and gives us an opportunity to choose how we behave in relation to that experience. So without awareness, basically we're the sort of victims of our habitual behaviours and our reactivity to circumstances. So at best, if we don't have awareness in our actions, then we're going to, from a spiritual, progressive point of view, we're going to stay where we are, or at worst, we're going to reinforce bad habits and make it more likely that we'll follow reactive and perhaps troublesome paths, in the future. So awareness is very important. It gives us the opportunity to avoid that latter scenario. And in the book, Bhante talks about what is mindfulness. We use the term quite frequently, don't we? And to explain, he gives a negative. He gives what it isn't. And I can sort of look back this morning to when I was thinking about what I'd say this evening right now, and my state of mind was more. I sat down to write a few notes down, and I started thinking about Christmas presents and wondering whether the orders I'd placed with Amazon and various other people were coming through. And should I really check my mail? And should I go run downstairs and look at the post? That sort of thing. I even considered doing housework. That's how desperate I was. And at one point, I found myself in the kitchen, and I don't know how I got there. I was downstairs. I literally thought, "Oh, crikey, I'm in the kitchen." and of course, well, I'm in the kitchen, I have a cup of tea, and that really must have been the reason. But I don't remember consciously getting off my chair to go into the kitchen. I just found myself there. So there's some of the sort of characteristics: unmindfulness, sort of forgetfulness, a lack of focus, trying to do a lot of things at the same time. And so mindfulness will be sort of the opposite of that. It'll be a sense of purpose in what you're doing, focus, maybe non-distractedness, and that sort of state of mind is generally a lot more productive than the former one. So in the book, Bhante sort of follows to traditional ways of looking at awareness. So what do we need to be aware of? And one of the first thing he says is, we need to be aware of things, like material things, the things in the world. And I was thinking what an example to give, and I looked out this morning. The sky was lovely blue. It was a lovely pale blue sky, and sometimes I didn't see it this morning, but sometimes you look at the sky, you're surprised when you see the moon. And it's not particularly noticeable that because it's not as bright. But when you do sort of notice it, I find it a really pleasant thing to take note of. The shape of it and the sort of beauty of it, really. And then quite often I'll take a little bit more time and try and vary it in relation to a tree or a building or something, and just look at it for a bit, because you can notice the motion of the moon against, relative to that. And then you realise that the Earth is turning. You realise you're actually on a turning world, and that the sun's moving in relation to the Earth as well. And you get this whole idea about the solar system, and all of a sudden that one contemplation, if you like, leads to what I find to be quite a joyful thing. Another word for another translation for the word smrti is recollection, and for me it's like a recollection of, or a remembrance that sometimes you can see the world as a very sort of magical place, and a very wonderful and big place, as opposed to your narrow concerns, and I can be sort of taken into that sort of mode of thinking, a very pleasant and expansive mode of thinking, just through observing the moon. So that's noticing the outside world, if you like, or material things. And nature is has a very big impact on most people, I think. But also, it works for smaller, more practical, mundane stuff, like noticing that you're going to run out of cornflakes, and next time you go to the shop you need to buy it, or something's about to break, why don't you fix it? It's just like paying attention to the world. So that's the first sort of realm, which is things. And the next three areas for us paying attention to, being aware of, is ourselves, and aspects of ourselves. The first one being our physical bodies. How are we in the body? And you notice when Viranaga led the meditation this evening, as we do most meditations, the first thing we do is we pay attention to our body. We sort of ground ourselves. We spend so much time, don't we, in our heads. If we do pay attention to our physical sensations, how we are, and we bring ourselves out of this sort of world that's buzzing around in our mind. It's very calming and relaxing sort of way to begin a meditation and to bring our consideration to. The next thing is we can be aware of is our feelings, our emotional states. Are we, and again in the meditation period, I mentioned a number of states. Could be anxious, angry, sad, happy, excited. There's a whole myriad of emotional states that we will be in one way or another. But maybe a lot of the time we don't actively think about what that state is, and actually how it might influence how we behave in the world. So paying attention to our feelings is very important. And so if you look broadly at our negative mental states, at least if we bring attention to them, we can sort of alleviate some of the impacts they might have if we sort of went on blindly, not taking into account that I'm feeling very impatient, let's say. I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. And likewise, if we pay attention to our positive states, we might find that they actually become more refined, sublime and pleasurable. And so, looking at, let's say, negative mental states, someone pointed out to me earlier in the year, very early this year, that I was being impatient, and it sort of struck me a little bit, because when I didn't take me long to think about it before I realised I was being impatient, and it was quite a familiar characteristic of mine, to be impatient. And I sort of made efforts to pay attention to that sensation when I was becoming impatient, and the tensing of the body, the irritation, and wanting people to hurry up or do things differently. And I started noticing it, while I was becoming impatient, which is not very nice thing actually. But then eventually I started noticing a little bit just before I was about to display my impatience, and that awareness helped me, most of the time, do something about it. Not always effectively, but I think I'm getting a little bit better at it. And that's just about bringing that awareness to it. And in terms of the positive things, I won't say much about that, but if you think about the moon example, where I pay a little bit more attention to something which I find pleasurable, it tends to expand and open out. So bringing attention to feelings can have that sort of impact. And the next aspect is thought. So the next thing, bringing attention to our thoughts. And I was going to read a little section from the book. It's quite fun what Sanger actually says about it, but we don't really have a lot of time for that. But basically he says if you ask people what they're thinking, most of the time they'll think they don't know what they're thinking. They'll be sure that they are thinking, but they don't quite know what it is, or where it's starting from, or where it's going to. And he said that if you actually pay attention to your thoughts and follow them through, you'll see the value in the thought. A lot of the thoughts is not particularly high. It's a good thing to think. We have to think, but we rarely spend time thinking. I need to think about X, Y, or Z, and I'm going to sit down and do that, and actually do it. Like my experience this morning, I didn't really do very well. So thinking is good, but it's very difficult to actually do properly. And if we pay attention to our thoughts, we'll find that we stop thinking quite so much, and that we have a calmer and a more malleable mind, a mind more clarity and poise and sort of potential, particularly for meditation. So that's ourselves, our body, feelings and thought. Next thing is other people, being aware of other people. We spend a lot of our time dealing with people, and the attention we pay people is often not adequate. And if we pay attention to people, we'll relate better to them. Relate better to them. It's difficult now, particularly we've got masks on, we're distanced and whatever. But I suppose that we can try. And if you look, I guess the worst example might be if you think about us going, commuting to work in the tube or the train, and how people, in a carriage of 200 people will try to pretend we're the only person on the carriage, and if we go to the other extreme, when we're on retreat perhaps, and we're in silence and retreat. I don't know how many people have experienced that, but when you do that, you tend to find that you notice a lot about people. When people are talking, when you're with people, you tend to pick up a lot from body language, and you notice a lot more about people in those circumstances. So the last thing I want to talk about in terms of what bringing awareness is awareness of reality. That's the most, if you like, the refined saying what is reality from a Buddhist perspective. So in summary, perfect awareness is about bringing attention to our experience in the areas that we've spoken about, and the reason being that if we bring attention, we can better manage how we respond to the world. And that response, if we bring that attention to our actions, then that will be to the benefit of ourselves and other people around us.
Well, thanks, Amalakad. I really enjoyed that. Well, I guess in a way it was a whistle-stop tour of all the many areas that we could be mindful of, and that's just a few of the areas. There are many different lists in Buddhism, all these things you can be aware of. And I particularly love these three aspects of mindfulness. So paying attention, recollecting, and continuity of purpose. I come back to those again and again. I find them really helpful. Because I was thinking of your example about sitting down to do the talk. And I'm just wondering, sometimes we could be more behind it or not, but I'm wondering if you maybe brought more mindfulness to your feelings or your body at the time, or felt more behind your purpose? I mean, I'm just wondering if that might have helped you stay with the talk.
Well, it's sort of interesting because I was wondering why it is that we prefer distraction to focus. I haven't got an answer. Yeah, there was. I mean, there is something easy about being distracted, and I was thinking also about in terms of continuity of purpose. I suppose if I'd sat down for an hour or something and written my notes and then got up and did whatever else I wanted to do, then that would be good continuity and purpose for that activity. But also as a sort of a broader, the continuity of purpose stretches beyond that, doesn't it, as well? Because then there's I need to do that because I want to come tonight and I want to talk to people and I want to be part of the Sangha. And then it goes beyond that as well, because I want to practice Buddhism. This is the way I'm practicing Buddhism. So it sort of expands as well, doesn't it? It's not
the continuity
of purpose.
Yeah. But it's interesting. We just tend to be distracted. I mean, Sankaracharya talks about, when you would give a talk and there'd be a noise at the back of the room and everyone would turn around. Like we have this. It's almost like we're looking for some kind of entertainment. I mean. I think that's part of it for me. We're not. This whole thing about integration. We're often our energies are going in different directions.
And I think we think we can do both things. I think we think we can. We can see who's coming in, wonder why they come in late, and listen to Bandy's talk.
Yes.
And I think we think we can do both of those without any problem. And we can't, can we?
Yes, I really like to think I can multitask. I think that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And Sankaracharya gives a great example of, in terms of how, mindful connection with things, like a Japanese tea ceremony, where you really have this kind of appreciative awareness of the tea, the sound of the pouring, the drinking. It reminds me of what you said about looking at the moon. So it's very appreciative awareness. Then you contrast that to one of his pet peeves, the business lunch, where you're wolfing down food and doing a deal at the same time. That's very much a mode that we can really fall into, because our society is so complex. There's so many things we're told we need to be doing.
Well, it's a great example because it sort of says, whilst we think we can do two things, the Japanese tea ceremony was I've only done 2 or 3 of those in the past, but they've been fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's so wonderful how something so simple you can get so much joy out of, and so much appreciation out of. If you, as you say, you pay attention to the sort of, the warmth of the cup as you pour it in, it's the scent of the tea, and the sound of the kettle boiling, all the things that you pay attention to sort of pay back. They make the whole thing much richer, and the whole experience very rich.
It's simplicity, isn't it? It's doing one thing at a time. And there's this narrative that I can have is that. You slow down and do one thing after the next, you're never going to get anything done. So, you're just grabbing 2 things at once. And sometimes it works, sometimes you can do 2 things at once. But then I have to recollect, that whole thing about mindfulness, recollect, where's that got you in the past? Remember my continuity of purpose. And I'm more successful after years of practicing them, but I still really, walk from one room to the next and have to forget. I can forget what I was going in there for, because as I'm walking, I'm thinking of other things I could be doing. So,
do you find yourself arguing with yourself, saying I should be having more continuity of purpose here, but I don't really want to? I want to go into the other room, and I want to go and talk to Rapitude, or I want to, I want to do these other things, even though I know that it's not necessarily the
Yeah. It's a bit like wholesome food. You know, when you've eaten a whole diet of really rich, unhealthy food, and you switch to wholesome, you know, really good for you food. At first it can seem quite bland and boring compared to all that excitement of maybe a lot of sweets or, you know, all sorts of fried things. And then you settle down and you really feel better. But it takes that gap, this kind of transition to slow it down enough to really see the benefits, like the tea ceremony, or like being aware of our bodies and our feelings and noticing how much calmer we feel, when we simplify. At the moment I'm working at reducing the amount of things around me, because even just having that awareness of things around, at home, and that's one reason we go on retreat, isn't it? Because then we're in a more neutral space with all these things we have associations with and complexity. And anytime I come back from a retreat, I want to clear out stuff because I can see how much it weighs on me.
I like the experience on retreat when I find myself just being very aware of what I'm doing in between the various the events on the retreat, like after breakfast or after the first meditation, the time between that and breakfast, and noticing how I'll make a tea just before breakfast. I tend to get into very routines, but I know what I'm going to be doing. I know that at this time I'm going to go and get a cup of tea, I'm going to sit on that seat in the garden, I'm going to, and I sort of find myself being very happy and contented, with doing just quite simple things.
Yeah, so you're more aware of your feelings, aren't you, and your thoughts?
Yeah.
When there's a simplicity of being on retreat.
I think contentment's an important product of mindfulness, because in a sense, when we don't set ourselves any boundaries in terms of what we can take in, we're sort of never satisfied.
That's right, yeah.
Great, so I hope you enjoyed that Dharma Night talk. So if you did enjoy it, if you're enjoying our videos, I just want to ask you or encourage you to think about making a donation to the Brixton Buddhist community. We're a UK charity that relies completely on your donations to run everything here. And if this was a meditation class, there'd be a donation bowl that you could just put in £10 at the end of the night to help support the activities. But as you're watching this online, I just want to ask you to think about making an online donation. If you've watched 4 or 5 videos this month, maybe you might want to think about giving £10. So there's a link in the description below where you can go to our website and make a donation. And if you want to keep giving and you don't want to worry about making that donation every month, well, you could just set up a monthly standing order. That would be really, really helpful. I want to suggest something of the region of maybe £10 or £20 a month if you're able to do that, and that would be really, really helpful and help us keep producing videos like this one. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourself.